AAA companies are struggling because they've pushed so many of their customers away and they're not meeting internal expectations, whereas indie and AA's are having the time of their lives and they're making the most amount of money they ever have. And now it looks like we are seeing some major shakeups from Sucker Punch to Naughty Dog and Sony, and it looks like they are going to have to change very quickly or they're gonna go under. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, Sony is a driving factor behind a lot of these stories, actually, because they are the ones who are saying you need to meet your goals or else you are not going to get funds anymore. And I think it's hilarious because for years, gamers have been trying to explain to these companies what they're doing wrong, what we want out of our entertainment, what we think would make their experiences better, and they have not listened to us at all whatsoever, and it's a major reason why they are in this predicament. But really, they're just getting a taste of their own medicine. If they actually had adapted over these years and they hadn't tried to modernize, well, they'd probably be doing a hell of a lot better. And we're hearing Sucker Punch is going through major changes, Sony is pushing changes onto Naughty Dog, and even going back to something like BioWare, it looks like really they are going to go under if they don't drastically change. So this is the first example I wanted to bring up, which had to do with the Ghost of Yotei developer Sucker Punch undergoing huge changes. Sony Interactive Entertainment announced that Sucker Punch lead and co-founder Brian Fleming will step down after nearly 3 decades. Starting at the beginning of 2026, creative and technical leaders Jason Connell and Adrian Bentley will be the studio heads for the developer that created the critically lauded Ghost of Yotei, and the Sucker Punch co-founder has made his exit. And if you really had a smashing success of a game, you're probably not going to leave the studio. Maybe this is just coincidental timing. I don't believe that. I believe that Ghost of Yotei did make money, but it still didn't meet their internal expectations because they probably had ones through the roof. And so he decided, okay, enough is enough. I just don't see a way that you leave if your studio is doing this good. It's not like we're talking about an 85-year-old man who got into the industry late and he just wants to retire. Nothing like that. He's moving on to greener pastures in this case, which screams a problem. Then we have the Naughty Dog developers reportedly being hit with mandatory overtime to finish an internal demo for its upcoming sci-fi game Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. Now, this is a title that has already faced major backlash because of the way that the game looks over the mediocre trailer they showed off, but you have Tati Gabrielle, the lead actress, being extremely controversial and coming out and attacking anybody who is criticizing her look in this title or just the way that this title looks. She has not responded to backlash very well, which is already a problem at Naughty Dog, especially with someone like Neil Cuckman, but it just makes it 10 times worse when you've got a studio head and an actress not taking criticism very well. Though, it sounds like things have not been going especially smooth behind the scenes because the Bloomberg report says Naughty Dog has missed multiple internal deadlines on Intergalactic, and this push is an attempt to get the game back on schedule. Employees were reportedly told not to work more than 60 hours per week, and were also ordered to return to the office for 5 days a week, rather than the 3 days per week that was previously permitted. So we're talking about bloat in the video game industry. We're talking about people not even working full work weeks. Like, these individuals, like union workers, for example, they want us to run to their defense and they want us to go after the companies they work for when they're already being coddled. That is insane to me. But yeah, apparently Naughty Dog has missed multiple internal deadlines, and as someone that is just hearing this information in passing, it's not shocking to know that Sony is ticked off with them. It's not shocking to know Sony is ticked off with really any of these companies. You've got Ghost of Yotei, which was controversial. When everybody wanted Ghost of Tsushima 2, you decided to go in this newer direction with a new character, with an actress who is self-proclaimed Antifa. You have Naughty Dog, who previously made The Last of Us Part 2 that gamers did not like, and it actually killed your show because of the Joel in 1 situation, because you killed off your main character and people were furious with that. People didn't like it, and it's not just, ooh, the toxic chud gamers, because you lost viewership from normies on the show. I also don't even think I really need to talk about this game anymore. We all know how much of a failure it was, but Concord cost $400 million to make, and that died 2 weeks after release. Concord was also, I think, really the straw that broke the camel's back and led Sony to making all of these very drastic decisions very quickly. I think they saw this be a complete and utter failure and said to themselves, we don't know what our developers are doing. We don't know the studios that we're buying. We need to re-hone in on what makes us money, which could be positive, but I also don't trust Sony, and nobody should either, though Concord lost so much money that it had to have scared them in some way, shape, or form. And you've got a game like Marathon that had to be completely rehauled because gamers were upset with how terrible it looked. You had a plagiarism controversy, you had backlash to the alpha, and now we're hearing that the Marathon art director is leaving Bungie following fallout from its now resolved controversy. They say that they just wanted to leave because they felt the game was basically complete. There's nothing else they could help on it. Again, I feel like that is bullshit. He announced his leaving via LinkedIn. I'm incredibly proud of the visual world we built for Marathon, he wrote on Twitter. Getting support at this scale for something a bit different is rare, and the art team at Bungie is the best in the biz. Yeah, maybe the best at stealing. I'll be enjoying playing the game as a fan with all of you. Massive thank you to everyone who has supported through all of it. And the Marathon lead and former Destiny concept artist also told Kotaku it was his own decision to leave. I'm super proud of the project and what the team accomplished over the last 6 years. Buddy, you have plagiarism on your record now. I don't think that I would be super proud to work on this project. Maybe your standards are extremely low. Maybe you're just trying to look professional so you can potentially get hired somewhere else in the video game industry. Either way, it's not a good look for you, and really, it's not a good look for your team, because even if you weren't the one who specifically plagiarized, you still had people under you that did. And I mean, I don't know either way if he truly knew or not, but I think it's very suspicious that he is now the one who is ultimately leaving. And these are just a couple of Sony stories. Never mind things like Borderlands 4 going on sale a month after release because it was trailing behind Borderlands 3 and it was underperforming. You have BioWare being in big trouble. But I really wanted to focus on Sony here because I do think that they are going through a major change right now. They are telling all of these teams, get your shit together or else it's over for you. We saw Bungie go through this major change with Marathon after all of the backlash and scandal, and with Destiny 2 sort of being on its deathbed, I think that they are desperate to have Bungie doing something else. They didn't pay billions of dollars for nothing. You have Naughty Dog, who in the past has made some very successful games, just like Sucker Punch, but their most recent titles have not been what fans expected, and they've made money, but the level of trust in them now is, I would say, probably at an all-time low. And if they do not show a good product going forward, people are not going to show up to support them, because the reason why something like Borderlands 3, for example, sold extremely well was because people had very high expectations, and before that, they had delivered on everything. But now that something like Borderlands 4 is out, if they ever make a 5, people are going to be much more skeptical. Look at The Last of Us. Last of Us 1 sold extremely well for a new game. People loved it, and that's why they went into buying The Last of Us Part 2. But if The Last of Us Part 3 comes out, there's going to be a chunk of the audience that doesn't trust Naughty Dog and that doesn't want to play The Last of Us Part 3 or is going to want to see everything that looks perfect and no elements of the game that looked undercooked or mediocre. And even in the case of Last of Us Part 3, I don't think it would be easy for them to turn things around. But we are talking about major changes going on at Sony. We're seeing leadership shakeups at these development studios. We are seeing Sony demand information on these different games because Naughty Dog is missing multiple internal deadlines. Marathon is going through these major shakeups, and really, it's not looking good for the Sony developers and people that work at these studios under it. So I'll be keeping my eye on this situation, but Sony is going through some major changes, and maybe this could mean something positive for the future of their titles. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this and found it important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.